All right, welcome folks. Welcome to DMM Working Group. I'm Shri Gundavalli from Cisco. And
Sapong from Alibaba Group.
okay, so before we start the meeting, few things. Note well. So this meeting is governed under some IETF rules and processes. Please read this note carefully. That's one thing. And now, few other administrative stuff. Blue sheets. Please sign the blue sheets. Suresh, welcome. And we also need some minute takers. Any volunteers, please? Carlos or oh, okay. Now the crowd is okay. Okay, I think yeah. This time we are very pleased to announce that we are announcing a new award, which is the Note Taker Award. So the guys who sent the slides the later, after the deadline, right? So we have four contenders. One is Marco Lavish and a few others, and the winner is Marco Lavish. Marco, willing to take the notes this time?
I thought the award is for the best slides. Okay, still, yeah.
Oh, I think that you get that. Anybody willing to take the notes, please?
Notes,
Yeah?
okay.
Oh, perfect. Okay. And we also need a JavaScript. Anybody volunteer JavaScript? One more time. Anybody please for JavaScript? You can blink, you can look at the chair screens. Seal? Yeah? Okay. Carlos? All right, anyway, we can maybe, I think we can get that. So here's the agenda. The agenda is we will discuss and a few other things. I think let's go the status of each of the working group documents. One is we'll start with the on-demand mobility document. I believe Danny you're going to give a presentation on that, right? At least you're going to talk on the on-demand mobility, right? You're going to give a status update,
Yes.
right? So I think that's, but a few things. I think the last update was on July 30th, so we didn't see a new version. But I believe you, at least you believe, all the issues have been addressed,
Right.
correct? Right? But I think what is pending is, I know Deping started writing the Shepherd note, but we didn't do the chair review yet. So he needs to do that. So there is something we need to close. We apologize
It's
for the
very
delay.
short,
Yeah, we apologize for the delay, but we'll take care of that. That's one thing. And also we need few more reviews. I know you were quite active and you tried to address all the issues, but we need few more reviews. Okay, so that we can make sure the document is in good shape before we forward it to AD. But in general, I think the goal is to really hit working group last call by IETF 101. Next, DM deployment models. So this was sitting idle, but later Seal took over and he did some. He has been quite active on that, and he also got some review feedback. And Seal has been addressing this, right? I think few other things that we have identified based on some new directions and based on some new interest will possibly we may have to include few additional deployment models that I think offline yesterday we had some discussions and Saduru-san and others volunteered to help Seal, and overall that needs to be captured. I think that based on the progress of that, based on the feedback, again we want to hopefully by 101 even deployment models. I think we want to. I think we are we are intentionally we are slightly delaying it because we want to the FPC document, because FPC was going through a lot of changes. We didn't want to just rush it through, because there's some level of dependency between the documents. We want some consistency, terminology, this and that. So I think reasonably this document is in a good shape, but we were slightly, but it's on track. Now, going to CPDP FPC document, again, some amazing efforts from Sato-san, Lyle and, Danny and others. And overall, this is I think a lot of changes, but I think today we're going to get some status update from Marco and team on this. And I think this is we need to work out a strategy because it's a huge document. We need to have some plan as how we plan to get reviewers assigned because, it's, anything document of this size to get some quality reviews, it's not going to be easy. So we need to, the Suresh self and AD self, and I think we'll also, we have to request few people to really spend some good time and review the document. I think that needs to be done.
So try to get, Suresh Krishnan, so try to get at least 3 good reviews from the working group. So I'll do one, I'll get probably one from the inter. So like that's at least 5 before it goes through. So, but not like, spelling mistakes and stuff like that.
No,
like
no.
some decent reviews, like then we can go forward with it.
This is a lot of work went in. I think it will be a disgrace if you don't do proper justice.
Exactly, yeah. So, yeah, please, thanks.
So, thank you, Suresh. And the DMM, distributed mobility anchoring. I think, thanks, Carlos. I know you provided some reviews, right? And at some point, you are not comfortable with the document status, right? Or at least the editorial aspects, right? Both technical and editorial. Now, I think I just want to hear like what you think, whether it's in a reasonably good shape or where we stand with this document.
So, Carlos Bernardo. So I checked yesterday the latest version, and I checked how my comments were addressed, and I'm reasonably happy with that. So I didn't really read again the whole document, just focus on the diff, and I think is much better than the previous version that I reviewed. So I think it can move along.
But I think we need a few more reviews. I think, so what happened, I think, other reviews were like, yes, it's great. I don't think we want that kind of feedback, right? I think we want some brutally honest feedback, right? Otherwise, IESG, it will come back. So we can send it, but what is the point, right? So I think you as the, I think you guys need to make sure, as the editor, right? You guys need to make sure this, we get some good feedback.
Suresh Krishnan, do you want to ask in the room if anybody wants to volunteer so you can
Sure.
like get the thing started quicker?
Yeah. I think we'll ask that as part of his update, maybe. Yeah. Yeah. So you'll after your update, maybe we can ask for some sign up. Yeah. So Anthony, that is one thing. And next is, I think this is the maintenance documents. Let's go with this list. I think, first one is the MNID. I think this was, sitting there for a long time. And I think really Suresh had to take a lot of heat on this. And Suresh, thanks for all your efforts to bringing this to a closure. Only yesterday we had some offline discussions, and we believe this issue is now resolved. It's now, the ball is in Charlie's court. Charlie needs to, I don't see him here.
So, Suresh Krishnan, so Charlie posted the draft like just before the meeting. So I'm just going to make sure, like, he just included your diff, but probably there's something more.
Yeah.
But I'll take a look at it and make sure, like, address stuff. But the first thought, I don't think it will address everything because, like, there's something you needed to do and something Charlie needed to do. The only diff was the one like you proposed. Right. So that's, I think we can solve it. At least we know a way forward, like more than the last 6 months. So I think it's better.
Yeah. Thanks again, Suresh. I know this gave, this took some efforts. So I think this we should be able to close it, and also a few other good things like the renumbering draft is now published. It's RFC 8191, and I think congratulations to authors, right? And that's one thing. And same with MAC, configuration parameters 8127, right? This is one good thing. But there was one errata that was noted by Verizon, and I think it will be posted very soon, but very minor thing, but I think some clarification is needed. So on 8127, we'll have that discussion. And one more thing, the multi-homing draft is also approved. So I think AD approved it recently, and it's in the RFC 8 queue.
Suresh Krishnan again. So it's actually done. It's not 48, so it's just waiting for you to approve.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Suresh. So I think, I think some good progress here on the maintenance documents, right? I think with that, now let's move on to the main agenda topics today. So we'll start with the FPC document, right? Essentially, get a status update on where we are. There's a lot of implementation work that's happening. I think the delegates from Sprint, like Fani is going, and others are there, and they're can talk about the implementation or whatever. But in general, that's some good amount of efforts are going into that. And next, we move on to some new topic around mobile user plane motivation and goals. We'll have Marco present it, and later Satoru-san will present his draft, and some good amount of discussions went through on SRv6 for mobile user plane document. I think we'll probably take that up as per adoption. And the other documents are the anchoring. Anthony Chen is going to give an update on that, and Danny is going to talk about the socket extensions, and Seal on the deployment considerations, and few other new topics like or the topics that have been discussed in the past, but again we're going to revisit them. One is the DM solutions using by Carlos, that's one thing, and mobility capability negotiation by Junga Hack, and one Wi-Fi users for DMM protocol or Wi-Fi users by Veshet. And lastly, I think DHCP extensions on demand for Danny. I think this also needs to be. I think you can change the order, but that's one. With that, I think next we'll go to our first topic, agenda topic, which is Marcos, the FPC. Okay. Open the slides, Marco.
All right, this is a brief update on the working group draft on FPC. And it's out currently in version number 9. Next slide. Can I push it from here?
You should do it. Right?
No?
Right,
But it's fine.
It's working. It's working. No, it worked. It worked actually. No, it worked with you.
So since last IETF, from the many meetings, site meetings we had at IETF 99, lessons learned, feedback received, we published in between last and this IETF version 8 and 9. So they are out and ready for review. So between last and this IETF, we had almost weekly, sometimes bi-weekly calls as scheduled allowed. And we came together to really improve the draft. Just to add to what we said before, the draft didn't receive changes content-wise. We tried to improve the description of the information model. We had a long Yang part in the back, but reviewers of the draft don't start reading Yang. They want to know what the draft is about. And so we did a lot of improvements here, and we are pretty confident that the draft now is ready for review, and we are happy to receive your comments on clarity. So we revised mainly the core document structure. Core document structure means the core part, introduction, how to read the information model, and the operational part. And in the back, you find the Yang descriptions. We added, to ease readability, a section on model conventions, as well as on the notation that we agreed on, and thought it's very valuable to read and understand the information model and ease of final implementation according to this model. We improved the model and its components descriptions, and we aligned it throughout the document to make it consistent from the very beginning to the end. In the end, thanks to some improvements in the models itself, we could reduce the document size. Also, we removed some of the messaging in the operational part because existing RFCs can be used to accomplish that. For example, cloning of templates. That's something we removed, and the most fundamental parts are still in. And yeah, version 9 is out, and we are happy to receive your comments. It's pretty late. It's not working. So this is briefly, again, referring to how we treat data plane nodes. So this draft is about a control plane using this information model and protocol operation to add policies and rules in the data plane. And in the beginning of the document, we clarified that we would like to have support for multi-tenancy network slicing. So we just described how we made design choices. And this is just a brief illustration on how a client and agent see the data plane nodes on an abstract level. So we treat only abstract data plane nodes here. And the information and data models have pointers to physical resources. So each data plane node needs to be realized in the physical infrastructure by physical switches, software switches, whatever. So here the model is flexible, but this figure just shows the mapping on agent level from the abstract data plane node to one or multiple physical resources representing the data plane. All right, this is, after some forward, backward, our current match and conclusion on the most suitable core structure for the information and data model. So all the substructures which we configure and modify throughout the life cycle of a registration are under mobility. So this is 5 structures that we define in the draft and treat by means of the configuration protocol, which is topology, representing what I showed before in the data plane node association and the supported interfaces in between. A general policy container, and by reference to this policy, we have configurable policy and mobility context. So these are the main policy structures that we maintain. Configurable policy is more pre-configured characteristics of the data plane, and changes are only made in case of reconfiguration. So that's more the long-term track of data plane node configuration. And mobility context is mainly what this group is about, which is handling the data plane node per the mobility management states and transactions. Last but not least, we have a substructure about monitors. So thinking about non-functional requirements, not only traffic steering is important, but monitoring the data plane, for example, to detect traffic for a mobile node, which is dormant or in discontinuous reception mode, and also to collect chargeable events. So collect traffic information to accomplish charging. So this is what monitors is about. Next one. A few details about the information model. So as said already, we added a section on notation and conventions to ease understanding the information model and following up on that. Settings, it's an attribute which you can see frequently in different contexts, either applying to a single rule or to a whole data plane node. So as said, we have a general policy structure which can serve as references, and individual substructures like mobility context, for example, can refer to an existing policy and apply settings to add or change existing properties per the actual mobility context entry. So that kind of referencing scheme and applying settings to that referred policy allows us to really keep the data model small and efficient and without many duplication of entries. So mobility context is the main substructure for mobility management states on the data plane, and it's size optimized. And yeah, traffic treatment can be handled by 2 options, either references to the policy substructure and apply settings to it, or by an embedded rule. So we define the format of an embedded rule, which also has traffic descriptor and traffic treatment actions, which is then embedded to the rule. So here, the client is flexible in how the entries are being made in mobility contexts. Next one. So that's it about the information model. We also defined the operational and messaging part So here we cleaned up a bit on inconsistencies because minor modifications and restructuring has been done on the policy and information model. So we aligned the operations and messaging with the changes in the information model, and some features have been reduced, such as, for example, cloning of policy templates, because we found that this can be done by and accomplished by existing specifications, like, for example, patch mechanisms of HTTP. So last but not least, that also helped to reduce the size of the core part. And all in all, we came up with a shorter document and with an improved structure. So we're confident that it's easier to read and understand and provide feedback to authors. And we are happy to discuss your feedback on the mailing list. Also, we would like to go through some examples, first to ease understanding and to cross-check if all features are supported by FPC. And second, that's to be discussed if some examples should also go into the document, or if we just go through the example discussion to check the consistency of this document. Next one should be the last one. Yeah, going forward, I mean, we're at version 9. I think going forward shouldn't take too long. So we would like to have an efficient review phase. And we need to clean up a few remaining issues in the back of the document that we have in mind. It's mainly editorial. And for the core part, we would like to get feedback from all of you. And as said, we should move the discussion on the clarity, but also on the examples to the mailing list. And we're happy to receive your feedback. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you, Marco.
Yeah, one question. So the module structure, you have policy and configurable policy. So it seems that the configurable policy belongs to policy. So why you have two categories?
So the policy is main structure is independent of whether it's configurable or mobility context policy. So it's a general description of more aggregated policies, and to enforce these policies, either the configurable policies for long-term policing can reference to these policies and enforce, or mobility context can also refer to a policy in this policy description in this policy tree, and then also apply settings or use embedded policy. So it's just serving as reference for either configured policy or mobility context. It's not a standalone policy that's being enforced.
Right. So just from the naming perspective, maybe it seems from the readers, it seems that policy should include all kinds of policy. So maybe including configurable policy. Maybe a better naming can help to clarify here.
Okay, so you're not asking to restructure the model again, but to use different terms for the entries. Okay, let's discuss that. Yeah. Anything else?
Thank you, Marco. Any other questions, comments? So I think, so the next steps, as we discussed, I think as AD advised, right, I think we'll have to sign up few. Suresh, you're going to sign up few reviewers, right? Okay. So Marco, when should we start that process? Do you think we should wait for some more time, or do you think we should engage folks right away?
So I think for the reviews at any time, I think you can start looking at the core part now. And since we need to work out minor editorial things, and we'll definitely go for a version 10 with the minor fixes. So if you have comments on the core part already based on version 9, we take this into account, which then improves, of course, the version 10 already.
I know you covered on the implementation. Any other details on what you can? Any other comments on the implementation status?
I think we skipped that slide. Maybe
yeah,
that
that's what I was thinking, actually.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I took basically Lyle's slide from last time, and there is progress on it. So the first implementation sprint worked on is the multi-DPN agent support. Multi-DPN means the agent runs on top of an SDN controller. In that case, it's an open source contribution to the Open Daylight, following the FPC specification, and also since some time a contribution of the FPC agent on Honors using the Honors Flow Store is being progressed. And mainly this is being done in the mobile cord project where Sprint also contributes.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you, Marco. So with that, yeah, thanks again. And I think, we have planned for this document, and I think, let's close that. Next, I think, Marco, it's again you.
You want to know?
Yeah, why
Okay.
don't you, maybe let's start others.
Right. The next presentation is actually introducing a topic, and I've been asked to have a general bootstrapping of a discussion here. So this is neither a solution nor positioning, but since there is more visibility and more traction on, so how should the mobile data plane look like in the future? So this is just fostering the discussion. And just as a kind of teaser, I mean, it's clear that the next generation mobile will have to support a diverse set of end devices, from IoT, from mobile internet using smartphones, and mission critical kind of support. So IoT, so different kind of devices are to be supported with different requirements. So you may not have mobile IoT devices, but stationary, but you still may need mechanisms for paging, not to locate the device, but to wake it up from discontinuous reception mode and power safe mode. So the network seems to be required to adjust or to be tailored to serve these diverse requirements. And so the big question mark for carriers is how to efficiently support these different devices and their customers from the vertical industry. And so how to handle the heterogeneity, how to manage resources, how to treat costs and keep them at a reasonable level, and how to accomplish network management. Some of the answers are given by the support of network slicing, then multi-access edge computing, moving network components as well as service components to the edge. Then controlled data plane separation. A lot of work happened here in the past, and that's a very reasonable step. And last but not least, to really tailor the provided service. So here on the data plane, people were asking if something needs to be done compared to what the current generation of mobile communication has. If we go to the next slide, we just see how data plane concepts work in today's network. So the Wolf packet system, which is considered to be the 4th generation, has basically a plane control plane for mobility management and a policy controller. Many of you are aware of this. And then on the data plane, it's nodes which have actually both the control plane and data plane collocated. So according to work we also do in DMM, which is FPC work, we separate the control plane from the data plane, which is already a good step towards efficient support in next generation. But basically, it's a single node, the packet data network gateway, that has to perform many tasks for a mobile terminal's subscription and associated traffic. So the IP address assigned to the device is typically anchored at this central gateway. Tunnels are being maintained to map the IP address and traffic to a locator where the mobile device is currently attached, and then it's being forwarded by tunneling. Non-functional parts are performed here as well, for example, for metering, QoS enforcement, and monitoring of chargeable events and chargeable event reporting. So typically, tunnels are being used in between gateways and the mobile's location. And people were asking if this is still appropriate for all different cases that need to be supported in the future. So this is basically the last slide, whether this follow-up slide, because we say, okay, is today's data plane sufficient, or do we need some modifications, some simplification? And I heard the word simplification on the data plane for next gen very often. So these are actually a few statements. And this is just input for further discussion here and on the mailing list. And there are a couple of candidates out that are being discussed as an alternative to today's tunnel-based forwarding data plane. And so people were asking if the cost and complexity of today's network, which is basically using GTP tunneling protocol, is suited for some deployments in the future. So simplification is something many people consider. Simplification in terms of not associating the many states with the data plane, like GDP, for example, having many channel endpoints and concatenated forwarding agents. Then per packet overhead counts. So that's different views from different sides. So some people say overhead per packet doesn't count. Some say we should save and reduce the overhead on a per packet. And if we do encapsulation in different tunnel protocols, so the per packet overhead is pretty big. There is a comment. I stop here.
Is it time for a question?
Anytime.
So I'm Charlie Perkins, and could you put up that slide that showed the SGW and PGW again? All right, so yeah, that's interesting. No, so when mobile IPv6 was being done, it had, you might say, a pretty simple data plane. And there were no shortage of people bringing that to 3GPP. And in fact, they did put in PMIP as sort of an alternative. But the people actually putting the networks out there, their idea was, well, this is supposed to be the evolved packet system, EPS, and where are we evolving from? Well, we know a lot about how to do GTP, and so the evolution basically wanted to continue the use of GTP because there's a lot of operational knobs and ways of making things work under GTP that didn't directly map into PMIP. And then we had a succession of PMIP documents on how to control things by using APNs and all this kind of stuff. So it wasn't like the IETF wasn't trying to satisfy the needs of 3GPP. There was a lot of work on that. So what it really boils down to me is, do they really want a simplified data plane? I mean, GTP is not simple, and worse than that, GTP-C is drastically not simple. So I'm not quite sure. I mean, if we had the goal of making a simplified data plane and actually even had a provably most simple data plane, what difference would that make?
Right. I think I fully agree to what you said, and GTP, as you refer to it, is pretty complex. Maybe justified complexity for what it is used today in cellular access. But I don't want to enter a discussion why mobile IP or proxy mobile IP wasn't adopted as we would like to have it. But yeah, I mean, mobile IP data plane, it's one data plane which could be investigated further if it's suitable for future networks. I don't want to position a particular solution here, but various aspects need to be into account. And the slide that comes after this, it's not the last one. I have a follow-up slide which actually says simplification has its limits. So there are a couple of things in mobile operator networks that need to be considered, including chargeable event monitoring, QS. So I think a plain IP network may provide the required level of simplicity, but not support all features. So I think we should not per se say what we have now is not suitable for the future, but I think multiple different data plane protocols should be something that we have in mind. And for 3GPP, I mean, if you look at what's currently being done in release 15, GTP is still in place, but regarding openness, at least we had a couple of discussions, not only in DMM, but in other tracks with 3GPP delegates in, and it looks like there is a little bit more openness regarding changes. I think there are people pushing for a study also in 3GPP, which claims to be the 5G standardization agreement. So I think we can do some work to at least prove that a different data plane with different characteristics, simple or whatever, is more suitable for next generation. And then if we have good arguments, I think there are chances that this may be adopted. If this is a mobile IP data plane or something else, I cannot say.
Well, it certainly wasn't my purpose to complain about them not adopting mobile IP. But it's a much more, I would say, basic observation, which is that we did something that satisfied the requirements as we understood it, and then somehow there was this other requirement, must use GTP, and so we didn't know about that. And not only that, but in IETF, you won't find too many GTP documents because we tried to do it before, and it just nobody wanted it really. So there's this famous saying: if you don't understand history, you're doomed to repeat it. And so I really think if you want to orient a sizable effort towards simplifying the data plane, really need to understand the requirements before we can get to a useful goal.
Yes, fully agree.
It's fine, Charlie. Yeah. So just to maybe a comment, right, essentially to Charlie's comment that, why, in the past we failed with respect to pushing the IETF, protocols or whatever. I think one thing is, if you look at, the GTP had, from 2G to 3G, there was a history, and for whatever reasons, for legacy handover reasons, they had to, that protocol survived. Now with the separation of control and user plane, there is an opportunity for IETF to really, apply some newer mechanisms. Now the 3GPP can keep all the, signaling complexity in the whatever entities, right? But at least user plane, can we normalize it? Can we look at it as a very normalized data plane where it's not access specific, right? Can it be like a used for a common for access, Wi-Fi, wired, doesn't matter, but one common data plane where we get rid of the tunnels and we leverage all the new capabilities of the SRv6 or those kind of newer stuff. I think there's an opportunity here, the way I see it.
I'll respond. No, already. Well, again, just to be brief as possible, we have a protocol that does that sort of, widely applicable way of making networks interoperate. It's IP. We know how to do an IP. What does IP do? It puts networks together. But if you look at that diagram, well, IP is sort of a little add-on on the top. And in order to do IP, you have to stitch together a bunch of tunnels. And in order to stitch together the tunnels, you have to allocate tunnel IDs. And then you have to associate the tunnel IDs with charging regimes. And then you have to, they didn't really care about putting Wi-Fi in there anyway when this was architected. And then the whole Wi-Fi authentication mechanism, which would somehow live up there side by side PCRF, is just not happening. So anyway, I want to agree with you, but I'm waiting for the evidence to help me agree with you.
No, I understand, Charlie. I think at least this time we can try. I think let's see what happens this time. There's an opportunity. I think the way I say it. I think that's it. Thanks.
Satoru Matsushima, SoftBank. Let me just share the recent status in the 3GPP, including SoftBank and some supporting company proposed to start a study work about the IPv6 only solution to next generation user plane. But at the last CT4 meeting, decision was postponed to next time. So next CT4 meeting will be held on end of the year this month. So just share that status and please bring your opinion to the CPPCT for if your delegate have a contact. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
So just a few more arguments here. So to decouple the control from the user plane for independent deployment and selection, that really helps to have a control plane that treats the data plane very efficiently according to its use in different industry verticals. And then decoupling the mobile device IP address from a single session anchor. So there are different proposals doing that, and the gain in doing that is very obvious. So to really treat IP addresses as identifiers which may not be routable, and to enable IP address continuity of an edge anchored IP address by maintaining an optimal route, that's something many sites want to have. So to enable anchor relocation and steer the traffic in the mobile core network in an efficient way without changing the IP address assigned to the user equipment. So that kind of floating anchor is something to be investigated. There's another comment.
Yeah, hi, Dave Allen Erickson. Just a quick observation, and that when you focus on trying to re-architect things, I'm sort of noticing that a lot of this seems to only focus on one end of the network, which means like you really need to deconstruct all of the things you're trying to achieve here, because you're trying to support virtualization. Right now, it's anchored mobility, intercarrier roaming, and then when you go into the RAN, there's a whole lot of things going on that nobody seems to be paying attention to, such as dual access, coordinated multipoint, X2 handover, etc. All of these things kind of factor into the big picture. And I would just suggest if you're going to try and do something, you're going to have to broaden the view to look at the full complexity of what's going on at both ends of the GTP tunnel. So.
Fully agree. I mean, as said on the next slide, maybe we have the chance to have a look at it later. Simplification has its limits. So I think from the motivation to change the data plane, we also should take into account where is the demand according to 3GPP, and the data plane can actually not ignore this. And but what you said for different accesses, I mean, if you look at today, we have GTP, which is mainly used for cellular. If we use non-cellular access, like Wi-Fi, a different forwarding scheme is being used. And fixed networks, again, another one is being used. So there is demand to really unify the data plane. That's wishful thinking, and make the data plane in the core network actually independent of the used access. I don't say agnostic, right? But independent. So I still think the core network should be aware of the access being used, but the forwarding plane on the data plane should be pretty much harmonized and not different protocols being used. Greater control in data plane. So we also heard about the need to actually have more control on how data plane is being routed throughout the transport network, independent of the device IP address. And I think there is one proposal being discussed subsequently from Satoru. And optimize operation between control and data plane. So to optimize really the costs in between control and data plane to set up, update, and tear down states required in the data plane during mobility transactions. Just a conclusion on the next slide. So still many non-functional features are needed, and here we should really collaborate with other organizations. So still traffic classification and QoS mapping is required. So in GTP, this is being done once on the gateway, P-gateway, and then the follow-up concatenated gateways, they just take this virtual tunnel identifier, which is a tunnel endpoint ID in GTP, and map it to an outgoing tunnel identifier So they don't do traffic classification again. If we don't do this at the gateway because we want to have plain IP routing, the most simplistic data plane we can imagine, somewhere you need to classify, for example, to support compatibility with legacy radio. So today, the base station and cellular expects a tunnel with a tunnel endpoint ID coming in, which is then mapped to the outgoing radio bearer. So here, these things cannot be ignored when really looking at the end-to-end aspects of the data plane. Support of non-IP data. So if we have non-IP data, we cannot use the IP-based transport network. So that's to be considered. We can use it, but something needs to be added to make it routable. And yeah, means for chargeable event monitoring and reporting needs to be done in particular if we have more diverse and distributed data plane nodes. So where to collect and from which nodes to report the monitored events. Support of dormant devices. So some of the proposals being discussed treat the data plane as identifier locator separated. So in support of dormant devices which are in discontinuous reception mode, the locator may be outdated. So how to treat this in collaboration with a separate control plane. Last but not least, I mean, compatibility with IP before transport, question mark. So the question is if we still, if this is still a requirement to be met, or if we can assume IPv6 on the data plane and private IP address support. Yeah. Important is if we have more distributed data plane per some proposals being discussed. So how to do QoS in terms of metering, right? So typically today you have a per APN maximum bit rate or per user maximum bit rate. So if we have traffic coming from different sites, I don't want to enter the anchorless data plane discussion because what anchorless means, right? And somewhere you need to have a node where the IP address of the user equipment is topologically correct, but you have other nodes that play a role in enforcing policies for that mobile node. So where to do metering, right? I mean, it needs to be set, or the meter data needs to be split between multiple data plane nodes. So that's to be discussed. That's pretty simplistic in today's architecture where all user traffic needs to traverse a single gateway. So there are advantages with this architecture, but in the view of the use cases to be supported in the future, something need to be changed, but these things cannot be ignored. So I hope more discussion can be fostered here on the mailing list. Thank you.
Yeah, please.
More comments?
Hey, Marcos, I'm Prakash from Cisco. I have a couple of questions, one question and one comment. So I think the previous discussion on GTP, I don't call this as a problem. It needs an evolution because GTP is more about the anchoring to the gateway and it's kind of being a user plane separately at the edge. It needs an evolution. So I think if we address it in the next evolution, it will go a little bit smooth with the 3GPP and we'll be able to get more support. So that is my comments. Second thing, are you working on some draft or something? If you are, then I would like to join you.
There are solution drafts out. Some pretty progress concepts are available, which are not available in the form of a draft. So there is work out. I think what could be accomplished in the IETF is a problem statement and requirements analysis, which then can go into a kind of informational document. I think there is work planned, right?
I think that will be good. I think for the architecture document, that probably, I think if you want to engage, maybe offline we can work this out.
Yeah. And the third comment is that on the non-IP PDU, I have one draft under ICNRG group, and we tried to propose a non-GTP based non-IP PDU, how you can terminate at the user plane. And I also did some trial in the lab. So if you guys want, I can share later on. Yeah.
So this is not only non-IP data, but non-IP transport, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
Both of them. Yes.
Thank you. Okay, I think one comment is I think we need to draw a line somewhere, because from non-IP to private IPv4, this is an extreme. For the next generation data plane, maybe you have to say we should be able to say, it's only IPv6. So I think that's, any other questions for Marco, please? If not, thank you so much, Marco.
So one comment, SL. I think that comes to me that interesting. If you have any solution, then you can go. But one idea is that maybe the people in here may tend to agree on some point you just raised, but something comes to my mind, that something can be resolved by nowadays. There's some technology enablers. So what is that the still problems, or what is really need to be, complemented? That how do you think that we just to investigate something more these problems and a little bit more clear, and more clarification maybe will be more helpful, and will make that people's understanding more focused on your point.
You mean the problems of today's?
Yeah, you just point out the problems, but a little bit that comes to me that little bit high levels. But with some more examples, that some cases, for example, like that more simplification of the network designs in very high levels. Nowadays, the network slicing separate those kind of networks, and the list of things will be decorating each networks, right? So, and it'll be very clear to that ease the network management and orchestration. But you are focusing on that how we can decorate each data plane, right? For example, and also that there are many solutions comes from that. Also, focusing on that. One of the problem you focused about the separation of the locator and IP addressing. So maybe a little bit more clarification will be helpful for us to focus. Thanks.
Yeah, I think what you said at the beginning, I'm with you, and I think it's a prerequisite to analyze the shortcomings of today's data plane. We don't want to do something new just to be different, right? So we should really have a good idea why today's architecture is suboptimal in different aspects.
Thank you, Marco. Now, next presentation is from Satoru-san on SRv6 for mobile user plane. It's working, right, Marco?
Good morning. Satoru Matsushima from SoftBank. This is the update of the SRv6 for mobile user plane draft from the IETF 99. We got two new authors, Mia Kono and Dave Dan Boyle from Bell Canada. So let me share the brief feedback from the after the IETF 99. The main feedback from many people is the what are the system impact? So I figured many people really care about the impact to existing system, because I think the many operators vendor pay huge resource and time and effort to build up current network. So when we introduce new something technology solution to mobile user plane, that cause a lot of the workload to things rebuild. So that's why they really care about the system impact. So the area of the impact would be expected, like control plane protocol, GPC and PMIP, and also the current radio access system. As Mark mentioned before, that there's just the cross-connecting specific TID to specific radio channel. So that's a bit agnostic about IP layer. So when we the concern is when we introduce new user plane solution, how do they adopt that change? So that's the concern. So I took care about that concern in the most recent draft version, which is 03. I'm sorry that the update is submitted right before this meeting. So please reload your browser to get the latest version of this draft. So many people also ask what's the benefit of the SRv6 for mobile user plan? So what's able to do with the SRv6 for user plan is not so much clear in recent previous version of the draft. So I try to include that benefit and introduce new mode to make clear what's the benefit of the SRv6 in the mobile user plan. I talk later. So other thing is if that is new and very benefit, but isn't that possible with the current user plan protocol? So I don't think it would be possible, but I think I need your review whether it is achievable or not by existing protocol. And also, so the question is like, isn't SRv6 is just another tunneling protocol? But actually, the naming show that segment routing is routing. It's actually not tunneling, but I think the tunneling it points to explicitly the remote endpoint. That I think that's the one kind of the source routing. But beyond that, segment routing is also one of the source routing technology. So then the segment route SRv6 can point the multiple forwarding point beyond that just tunnel remote endpoint. So the good thing is nobody asked how SRv6 works for mobile user plan. So I think I did it to explain how SRv6 works for that existing typical mobile user plan role, because it's really just simple terminate and the endpoint, tunnel endpoint, and then just forward the packet based on the tunnel ID or some APN bind to the that tunnel. So here the summary of the update to 03 version.
Just 1 second, Sakai-san. Blue sheets, please. Blue sheets, please. Can you keep it moving? Yeah. Thank you. Sorry.
The first, I introduced the basic mode user plan. This means that there's no advanced feature. It's almost or completely same with the existing user plan network, because as I mentioned before, so many people care about system impact to the existing network. So I trying to show it's possible to deploying SRv6 with no impact to the rest part of the mobile mobility management system. So that means it's just people can be feel safe to consider the new user plan solution in the future. So, but the no impact is my personal opinion. So I think we need your review whether the no impact concept is true or not. So even I introduced basic mode with no change of existing control plane function. It doesn't mean I surrender to keep existing architecture. I really want to introduce new flavor or functionality to future user plan networking. So first, introduce SRv6 without any change the rest part of the mobility system. That enable us gradually migrate from basic to more advanced user plan mode using SRv6. So then next is I introducing a use case of stateless interworking with legacy access. As the Mark mentioned before, I also mentioned that the existing radio access is not familiar with the other user plane protocol. So what if we can conserve the existing legacy user plane protocol to access network? So it makes us easy to migrate the user plane protocol except the radio access network. So and also the stateless is a key not to introduce any impact or change to the rest part of the mobility management, like control plane. So stateless means that the existing mobile control plane doesn't need to care about whether there is a interworking node. So that node does not require any awareness of the mobility state. So that's the beauty of the status, to make sure the interworking with the existing access network. So that's why my main point to introduce aggregate mode. So in aggregate mode, user plane node assign the segment ID instead of the tunnel endpoint and TID to represent user plane function in service policy basis, not session basis. That means the multiple mobility session can be aggregated into the one or multiple service policy segment to be handled for the mobility. That means that we can integrate the advanced feature beyond the just manage the mobility. Currently, we deploying that feature outside of the mobility tunnel, like SGI is a place to put that future charging, rate limiting, not happy future for that our customer, but we need that currently. But other side, things also deployed in the GI, SGI, GI RAM area. So when we introduce aggregate mode, that advanced feature can be integrated within the mobility path, mobility management path, not the outside of the mobility tunnel. So this picture shows how we can conserve the existing control plane protocol to no impact. So let me explain a bit. So first, some mobile node, mobility management node receive the tunnel initiation or tunnel modification with the tunnel endpoint address A with the tunnel identifier 0x12345678, and then control plane entity in the node receive that message. Then that entity notice that parameter with the A with 0x12345678 to the user plane entity. That user plane entity generate the segment ID based on the tunnel endpoint address and tunnel identifier into the one single 128-bit space. So then the segment ID has been formed like A:1234567 That's a way to keep the control plane as it is, even we introduce SRv6 with the basic mode. So I think there's no impact to the control plane. So then once the SID is introduced the FIP and the node receive the packet destined to the D from the source address of the S node, the FIP table looked up, and then for the node for the packet like this, the node rewrites the destination address to the A: 1234 5678, which is received by the another end of the mobility management node. But original destination address has been kept in the segment extension header as the segment ID is 0. So then once even the receiving node to pop out the SR header and then rewriting back to the original destination D clone, the node can find that original destination from the packet. So that means that there's no need to introduce another kind of the mapping table to rewriting the address to the from the intermediate anchor from the original destination address. So that's kind of the concept of the rule in the packet. So there's no need to additional state or table to do that. That's one of the advantages of SR-basics. So this picture shows how stateless interworking segment stateless interworking function working. Let's see when the packet comes from the legacy, for example, radio access network to the SR-based network. The packet has the IPv4 source and destination address, and also the tunnel ID may be expected the 32-bit length. So that's and the packet payload is IPv6. We assume the packet has the source and destination address. So once the stateless interworking node receive that packet, and then that node do like this, the popped out the outer IPv4 the tunnel header, and also they generate the segment ID from the receiving packet of the IPv4 addresses and tunnel ID like this. So here, so the destination address is the segment points the segment which consists of the locator of the next receiving node, and then destination address of the tunnel IPv4, and the source address of the tunnel IP packet, and then tunnel ID. So even that 3 parameter is 32 full bit length. It's just 96 bit. It remains still 32 bit space, which is really easy to get from your NIC organization, APNIC, RIPE, Alien, some others. There's no concern about the address space to put the whole 96 bits into the IPv6 128-bit space. And also the opposite direction from the SR-basic to existing IPv4 legacy IP access network, the opposite operation will be performed like tunneling IPv4 header, and tunnel ID is extracted from the receiving segment ID, and then the node generates the outer header, and then they push that header to the packet, and then forward it to the legacy IP network. That's how it works. Okay, so to do this, I trying to define the pseudocode to do that. End TM end function of the tunnel mapping. You can find the pseudocode in the draft. Please read that. In end TM work for the SRV to the legacy direction, and TMAP is transit behavior of TMAP means like a tunnel mapping. So that works for the legacy to SRV6 direction. So please check the draft how that works to do to achieve that stateless interworking function. So this is the list of the work in progress we had. We need QoS and accounting feature in the SRV6. But I think that would be easy to just map the segment ID to represent the QoS policy and also the accounting policy. But how we define the bit space to means specific QoS policy or accounting policy is a still question. So next thing is end-to-end segment routing and network slicing. Because SRv6 is a part of the IPv6 specification, so latest Linux kernel, for example, have a socket interface to push the segment header to the packet from the. That means application is able to designate the specific slice or resource in the network. So that enables us to fulfill the requirements for the 5G application-based network slicing, something like that. So we need to study more to that possibility and co-work with that endpoint end application segment header to mapping to the network resource. So IPv4 support, I think to make us easy to migrate from existing to SRv6, IPv6 will be required. But we already have a bunch of the IPv6 transition solution like MAPI, MAPT, NAT64, 464XRAT, and DSLites. As you've seen the big discussion in the IPv6 ops list, so you may use NAT64 SSID already. So IPv6 only network now works to bring IPv4 application. So that means we can keep the IPv6 only user plane to carry the IPv4 application. So last thing, the collaboration is I mentioned before in the mic. We supporting company trying to propose the new study item to 3GPP. The working group is a CT4, is a protocol author working group. So if you have a delegate in your company, please contact them and then so introduce this idea, and also please trying to involve that work them. So next few slides show how basic mode works, but it is pretty much similar with the previous meeting slide. So we define just access point node, layer 2 anchor node, like a segment gateway, SC gateway, and LC anchor node, P gateway as well. So that's map the existing and SRv6 and the function. There's no need to introduce new function for the basic mode. Please.
So Shreya, so to this one, so one question is like, where is there an assumption that the SRv6, the starting point of SRv6, is it the inode B or the access point, or is it the first hop router? Like, in both the cases, what is the impact to the SRv6 state machine?
Okay, so if we assume that preserve the existing access network, so this good starting point is interface between the P gateway and the S gateway. So I mean, no touch to access side. So then we can independently migrate our data user plane to the IPv6 only network basis from the existing GTP tunneling solution. That's my idea, but maybe you have other idea.
So I guess some more thinking has to go. Yeah, thanks.
Hi, Sale. To better understand the scope of this document, that is it focusing on that just about data forwarding mechanisms, right? And for example, like who programmed this forwarding behavior, and is it not the scope of your documents?
Good point. Because the many other working group working on that future like a SFC working group, how trying to figure out how to change the services in the past, and also the Spring working group, also the Home working group, the segment routing, trying to introduce the segment function with to fit the kind of the programmability of the network. So this work is just leverage the that effort and the solution to the mobile user plane. So I think we can leverage that solution already exists on the other side of the working group. So then we can adapt that solution into the mobile user plane as one of the use case for them. So that's what my idea based on.
Okay, second comment is that I think it could be one of the next generation mobile networks data plane solutions. How have you checked that how it can address the concern that raised by that the Marco, and he just show that what is requirement and in the current legacy network for the better next generation data plane networks. That in terms of that, I wonder that how much it can fully address this concern. Second is about the control plane inside. I mean, who will program this forwarding behavior? How it can be aligned with the FPC for applicability of FPC in here? Just let me know that.
Yeah, thank you. I fully agree with you, but my habit is almost like IETF like things. So just trying to publish the solution idea, the protocol extension. So then maybe some people find out what's the problem, what's the applicability for that solution. Then build up the whole document set or whole consensus of the this working group or the others working group, and also the IETF and CGPP. So then this is just beginning phase to publish the idea and then discuss.
Okay, so one quick comment. It seems that you don't have any changes for existing segment routing protocol, right? It's just a kind of deployment recommendations.
Yes, as you can see, I don't introduce the special SRv6 function in the basic mode. I just introduce the stateless interworking function to be introduced as a new, just that. So I think we would be better to keep existing endpoint function as much as possible, but the extension should be minimum for that.
So I think probably we are slightly running few minutes late, so we have to.
Okay, let's just share the, sorry, the skip. You can find the this animation, and this is the previous, same as previous presentation. Yep. Please keep push the listen button. Sorry. Yep. No. Next. Sorry. No. Next. Sorry. Oh, this. Yeah. Summary is the here. The new thing is the basic mode by BS aggregate mode. People can rest or feel the rest to not to introduce much change into the existing system. Basic mode fulfill that to the requirement to keep the existing system as much as possible. So then aggregate mode is the next phase. Basic mode to aggregate mode easy and gradually migrated in the future in each of the mobile network. Okay. So next step will be like a starting point for the user plane optimization work. So that's all I have.
Okay. Thank you, Satara-san. So I think what we're thinking is to just get a sense of what the working group feels about this work, right? In general, I think it's promising, and I think we have an opportunity at IETF to really influence 3GPP. This is I think looking at it, if we can clearly change the data plane. We can significantly optimize it. So this is a right step in the direction. I think that's what, that's the chair views, right? Now with that, can people share like any, how many people have read this document? No, right? Okay, very good. Good. Okay, you're including yes. Okay, so that's very good. And now, like, how many people are support this work? Like, willing to take, if you want to adopt this as a working document, how many are willing to? Wow, that's pretty good. Okay, oh, including yeah. Okay, anybody opposing this work? There are like 5 people in the 4 or 5 participants in the Java. Any feedback from Java? I believe. But it looks like this is good. I think so. In general, yeah, we'll confirm it in the mailing list. But I think probably we'll take this up. Very good.
Sorry, one question. Actually, I showed my support here, but always that I'm confusing that when it just comes to some agreeing to go with a certain ID draft for a working group document, that maybe I remember that maybe you just told me that before when I was to try to make that my personal document for a working group document called adoption, that you told me that there is no charter items. But how is in this case is that how usually working here in
Sure. I think a couple of things, right? In general, if you look at the DMM charter, this, it's about optimization, about next generation architecture. So in that sense, it falls in that scope, right? But I'll let Suresh comment.
Okay, Suresh Krishnan. So as AD, so the thing is, the charter does cover this work, but there's no milestones for this. Okay, so like there's like a slight disconnection. Always like the charter is like usually scoped wider than the things the working group is currently working on. So if this doesn't fit in the charter, the working group needs to recharter. Okay, but if it's covered by the charter, then it's a question of adding a milestone. So what happens is the working group decides to adopt. They cannot do it yet, right? Like so. They can say like, okay, like, it's ready for adoption. Then the chairs need to put in like a milestone, add a milestone, and the milestone shows up to me. And if I approve the milestone, I look at it and I say like, are they going to make the timelines? Usually all the working group milestones are like hopelessly out of date, right? Like some are like, off by a year, some are off by 8 years, 10 years, whatever, right? But like at some point we need to evaluate whether the working group is able to keep the milestones. So that's what I do. So I look at it and I say, okay, so there's going to be like an adoption milestone, like a working group last call milestone, publication milestone. Okay, so I look at it and I say, is the working group capable of doing this? Is there interest and energy in the working group to do it? And then I approve the milestone. So then it shows up without a recharter, right? So as long as the work is covered by the charter. So if the work is not covered by the charter, then like the working group needs a rechartering.
But wouldn't do usually the adding milestone usually based on that some given charter item before? Charter description.
Right, like the way it's done is the charter description covers what are the things the working group wants to do, right? But it doesn't go down to the level of granularity of the milestones. Some charters do, some don't. The DMM charter does not, right? And like there's like working groups where I have charters which specify no milestones. For example, int area. Okay, it's a working group. We don't know what work is going to come up, right? But we know the scope of work that we want to do there. Okay, so the milestones will get added as like they come along. It's like 6-man, right? We don't know what kind of, so DMM is like no matter what people think, it's a maintenance working group. Okay, so if somebody finds an issue with mobile IPv6 tomorrow, I cannot anticipate that in the charter, right? So it's going to be something that comes up randomly at some point, and then we decide to do the work or not. So that's like, so there's like newly chartered working groups for like, greenfield things work a bit differently than maintenance working groups where we cannot anticipate up front what are the kind of things we need to do in the working group. Okay, so at this point, like I think it's covered by the charter, right? But if people don't believe it, then we can probably talk about like, how we go about it. Like, do we have to recharter or like not take it, or there's like multiple options then there, right? But I do think the charter covers this work personally. So it's just a question of adding milestones. So if there's like energy in the working group, because what I'm looking for is like, people willing to work on it, people willing to review it, because that is something that is completely lacked in this working group is reviews. And that's something I'm going to see. If I don't see like, like a whole bunch of people willing to review it, like I'm not going to let you take this up, right? Because I don't want poorly reviewed documents coming up to the IESG. Okay.
Thank you, Suresh.
Okay, sorry, but okay, okay, so okay, okay, I can follow some, some point, but But honestly, that it is not clear to me that because it is not in the extension of the maintenance and it, present a new solution approach. So, okay.
Okay, thank you, C.
Hi, Dave Allen Erickson. Has this been presented to Spring?
No, yeah,
Yes?
because the last IETF meeting doesn't have the didn't have the Spring meeting, so then I skipped sprint presentation, but now sprint agenda is really full, so there's no space to present right now. But if you can reconcile that things, I'm really happy to present.
Yeah, I have to apologize as I've not read the draft, but clearly it's, yeah, I know. I'll move to the back when I go to sit down. Just of course, there's an awful lot of dependencies how SRv6 ultimately works. And if this is going to end up diverging possibly from what is now an incomplete work, that to me would be a concern. So.
One comment is the authors like Clarence and all of that, they're driving the SRv6, the key standards there. So in that sense, we are reasonably sure that, this is in line with that work.
Anthony, just responding to a charter issue, I think it's related to the charter, at least related to the enhanced anchoring, because it includes a different way to a different solution, how included. So I think it's relevant.
Okay, thank you.
So, Suresh Krishnan, so like to Dave's point, right? Stuff always diverges as long as there's we are referring to drafts normatively, like we have to keep track of it. I think probably like before working with last call, we should sync, and it's not just Spring, because it's also 6-man, because we're using SRv6, and you know what is happening in 6-man, right? Like SRv6 is like flipping and flopping, like between encap and insertion, right? Like so that thing, unless like that gets resolved, this is not going forward like at some point. But that doesn't mean like working group adoption doesn't mean the document is done. It means it's beginning, right? Like so, I don't mind you like starting to work on it, but like before it gets published, it's a while away, because all these other things that they brought up had to be resolved before the document gets published.
No, absolutely, Suresh. Very good. Thank you so much for all the feedback. We'll reconfirm this in the mailing list, right? I think all the points are noted. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I think the next presentation is on-demand mobility. Distributed mobility anchoring. Yeah, Anthony Chen. I think we'll cut down the time by a few minutes, Anthony. Yeah, you can just slightly. What is that? Slightly. Enhancement. So we can slightly speed up the tool. Just 2 minutes.
Okay. I'll be quick.
Just one. I think blue sheets, please make sure everybody sign the blue sheets, please. Who hasn't signed the sheets? Okay, very good. Yeah.
I'm just going through the review. We're going through the review and how we deal with it. My 6 to 7 are minor changes, except that I added the segment routing as one of the mechanisms to do the routing, so it's to show the relevance. And then go. So I need to point to your computer. And then the from 5 to 6 was basically addressing the comments from Carlos, and he's okay with it. And then.
Okay, I'll just tell me.
And then from version 4 to 5 were the comments from Peric and Bijou. Peric comment had a number of changes, and he's also okay with those comments. And Bijou's comment was basically on the document being too long to read, and he was not concerned about the content. So yeah, to fix it, I shortened it to about from 50 pages to 40-some pages. Okay, it's not much, but to add the additional label so that one does not need to read the whole document, because this is trying to be a very comprehensive document all the functions of the anchors. And by having the list label, the titles to show that if you're not, for example, if you don't care about tunneling, you can skip all the label that says tunnel to make it easier to read. And then from that was already taken care of before, and also before that there were lots of comments from Uni prior to that. There were personal comments and several times, and when we fixed that all. And other than that, there were comments from co-authors. Okay, so those are the reviews that we have done. Okay. Yes.
Okay.
I
So,
only cover the one that is more content related.
right. So I think my problem is I just want to ensure the document is in a readable quality. You know, the last feedback from Carlos was that it was not, but now he said it is, right? But I want the same view from others too, right? So far, your reviews have been too nice. I think everybody says it's great, but I don't believe so. I think let's get, I'm suggesting let's get few more good reviews. Okay, not very, not just for the sake of saying, right? But some good reviews. Otherwise, IES will throw it back, right? We don't want it. So can you please ensure, get some good reviews and fix it?
I didn't ask them to be nice to me anyway.
No, I'm just joking. But seriously, can you ensure that this? We need to wrap this up. This is.
But we probably have to ask it here. I have personally asked a number of people, and asking people to read a 45, 50-page document. It's not it's a big favor.
No, don't scare them now. So we don't have to disclose the pages. So can somebody, who can, volunteer to review this, please? Any volunteers? Come on, we cannot do the work. Okay, Marco, Charlie. Okay, very good. So one more. We need one more reviewer. One more reviewer.
Can you read it yourself?
You have to pay your duties. No, we'll do a chair review. You have to do.
Oh, you do.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. Sadaru-san. Yeah. So, Danny, we have 3 names, right? Thank you, sir. No, we have 3 names. Okay. You're optional by the way. So, okay. Yeah, very good. I think so. We have a plan for this, and I think once we are, through this, I think we'll issue the new blast column.
What's the timeline for this round?
The reviews. I think we want some good reviews. I don't believe the reviews are good yet. I think so far only 1 review, except for Carlos. We don't have any.
Eric did the serious
Eric
review.
did
Yeah.
Oh, really?
He did a good review,
Okay.
but
Okay, then that's I trust Eric. Yeah. All right. Okay. Let's quickly move. We'll wrap it up. before
Okay,
one
so we have Charlie.
Charlie, Satoru-san, and Marco.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I think next is Mr. Danny. Right? Yeah, I think your presentation. Yeah, so I think we need to cover for your notes, right? Sub extensions.
Okay, next slide. Just a reminder of some history. This draft went through a work group last call about a little bit more than a year ago. And at some point, Suresh recalled it back to merge with another draft that was written by Seal. We did that. And since then, we got some good comments about this review, and as a result, added the sample code and changed the socket API that we were using due to some concern about the blocking nature of the call. We did all that. In the last face-to-face, we basically had one comment about asking to modify the word code to pseudocode because the comment was that the code won't compile. And there was a question about, or request for more clarifications about the different type of services. So I've changed the text to pseudocode, and while reviewing the document, I added some text that describes the merging of this functionality with the functionality that is mentioned in RFC 5014. Um, I don't expect people to try to invoke both features because they contradict each other, but I added the text to clarify that and to clarify what is the expected behavior if such wrong programming is done. That's all. Other than that, I put on the list, I copied the description of the different service types from the draft and added some examples or use cases as to in which case different service types should be used. And other than that, I think the document is ready. I didn't receive additional comments after posting the updates.
No, I think so. I think you did a very thorough job in following up with them on the mailing list and all the comments. I think you've done your job. I think we need to, I think Lorenzo and Eric, had few comments in the past, right? I think it's good to get their feedback, right?
Right.
I think so. Maybe let's reach out to them, right? I think, because they participate in the discussion. That's one thing we can do. Second thing is we'll ask, we want one or two some focus reviews.
So just to remind you, Sri, the change, this was due to the blocking function.
That's true.
I changed that about 2 meetings ago. And in the last meeting, you specifically asked Eric if he's happy with the change, and he noted that he was.
Okay, is it?
So
Okay,
I think
I'll take
we're
it
clear
back.
with that.
Okay, very good. I think now what we'll do is we'll do a chair review and maybe get one good through addition. We'll ask somebody to provide some
Yeah.
feedback. And after that, we'll issue last column.
So just to point out that it's, I would say in net, less than 10 pages draft. It's a small draft. It won't take too long to review.
Okay.
So I'll appreciate any help.
Yeah, we'll close it. I think this is in a good shape. I think that's fine. I think we'll go to AD after. This is done.
Okay, thank you.
Right. So next, you want to, next presentation is see, yeah, the deployments, time-wise, you're okay. Okay, whenever you're ready.
Yeah, hello. Hello, everyone. Yeah. Okay. Look at the scanner. Okay. I'm Zale. This is the draft update presentation for DMM deployment models and architectural considerations. Actually, after last IETF meeting, we tried to address, we tried to get the comment and feedback in the list, and also we addressed their comments. We believe so. And so we got useful feedback and comment in the list, and thanks to Suwan and the truck. And actually, but it was about mostly the editorial points and the need, and we didn't get any specific, some against on the main pillar. And so some typo detected, we resolved, and the reference requested, especially that in case of NSH is mentioned. So actually that is about that, what is about NSH classifier. So we put that some RFC 7665. Also extension of acronyms that mobility controller and routing controller. Also we put that this, and actually the before that definitions has not been given there, but so we put that this definition in the terminology section. So, and 2 days before, we submitted a 03 version. So now you can see that the revised version, and also will be very helpful that if you can give some more comments and feedback, then it will be more highlighted. And so I think that we suggest moving this ID into the AD review, and as we suggested before in the prior meeting. But as the chair and mentioned at the first time, that we are also carefully see that also APC's progresses and the other and new draft perspective and aspect that in which point that we need to address in the deployment model document. So, and also will be, going aligned with other document status. Thanks, and any feedback or comments?
Thank you, Seal. I think overall, like I said, the document is in a good shape. We'll just, let's include the new deployment model, and we should be able to take this one. Thank you. And next presentation. Network. Oh, correct.
Let's do this way. Okay, so I'm Carlos Bernardo. I'm presenting this on behalf of my co-author, Antonio, Fabio, and Juan Carlos. So, well, this has been already discussed a few times in this working group. This is basically a solution for DMM for proxy mobile IPv6. So I will try just to summarize the way it operates, and then some words about some demonstrations that we have done and open source code that is available implementing the solutions, and then some hopefully some questions to the working group and potential next discussion on potential next steps. Oops, sorry. So this draft, actually the draft that I'm presenting today, replaces a couple of drafts that we had. We tried to, as a result of the discussion that we have in the last IETF meeting, try to combine and provide a unify one single draft with all the solutions that we had in the past for proximal IPv6. As I mentioned, it's basically an extension to PMIP, in which we basically move the mobility to the edge, and we do that by basically having an architecture that have a distributed data plane with a partially centralized control plane. So we have, as we will see later, the routers at the edge basically assume the functionality of LMAs and MACs, depending on the prefix and the node. And then we have a kind of control-only LMA, which is basically keeping track of all the prefixes, where they are anchored, and ensuring that the signaling is done between the different nodes to maintain the connectivity of the different prefixes. So in terms of, terminology, we have these two nodes. One is the mobility anchor and access router, which is, you can see that as an access router that is behaving as LMA and MAC for different prefixes. Then, well, additional terminology, when this MAR, I mean, for the nodes that are attached or handled by this MAR, we call that serving MAR, because R is the node that is serving the mobile node. And then that node may be also anchoring some prefixes for attached nodes or for other nodes that are attached to a different MAR. And for that, we use the terminology anchor MAR because it's anchoring the prefix. So basically, those entities are the ones that are involved in the data plane, in the forwarding of the packets. And then additionally, we have this centralized mobility database, the CMD, which is basically the LMA for the control plane. In terms of, sorry, it takes some time. Okay. In terms of operation, so in this diagram, I try to summarize the operation of the solution. We have here the CMD, the control plane entity. We have a domain. We have different anchors, just a couple of them for the sake of the example. And we have a mobile node. So for the initial registration, when the mobile node attaches to one of these anchors, we have here the diagram for the flow sequence. We have the attachment. The MAR that detects the attachment and creates a prefix for the node, and basically sends a PBU to the CMD, to the LMA for the control plane. So then, as similar as with PMIP v6, we have the CMD, the LMA, assigning the prefix and basically sending the PBA, the proxy binding acknowledgement. And at this point, the access router can just send the router advertisement with the prefix, and the mobile node can configure that prefix and start using that. So this prefix 1 here is actually anchored at this mobile access router 1, We can see here the different conceptual structure for the binding cache and the routing state on the mobile access router. So very simple here, nothing new at this point. It's like PMIP. Then if we have next one. Okay. So we have mobility. So we have the mobile node moving to another router. Basically, we have here that what will happen will be that the mobile node attaches to the access router 2. The access router 2 detects that connection. It will follow the same procedures as before. It will send a PBU to the CMD. The CMD will check that the guy is already connected in the domain. So basically, we'll send on the one hand a PBU to the former MAR to basically say, okay, that guy that was attached to you has moved. You have to establish a tunnel between you and the new access router where the guy has attached in order to ensure that this prefix 1 that was anchored, that is anchored at access router 1, will keep with the connectivity or the reachability will be maintained by sending the traffic through this new tunnel created here. And additionally, we'll just say, okay, it will also send a PBA to the access router 2 saying, okay, this is the prefix that you have to use for the locally anchored prefix at the access router 2. So basically there are two prefixes, the one that is anchored at access router 1 that will continue flowing through the tunnel that is established between access router 1 and access router 2, and a new prefix anchored at access router 2 that will be provided to the mobile node. So the mobile node now has two prefixes, one anchor here and the second one anchor here. And you can see here the different state in the different routers. And for this, the mobile node 1 for the traffic using the previous prefix, traffic will go through access router 2, through the tunnel, and then being forwarded by access router 1. And for the new traffic, new sessions, it will use the new prefix locally anchored here, and we just follow the traditional path with no tunneling. So basically, this is the functionality, just a simple extension of proximal IPv6. In the draft, we also have described how we can ensure. You have a question?
Yeah, quick question.
Yeah.
Now, given that in the CUPS kind of architecture with the user and control plane separation, right? User plane and control plane separation. How does this approach?
So can you repeat the question?
Now, with the separation of control and user plane,
Yeah.
right? In that architecture, how does this fit in this approach, specific approach?
So basically, I mean, you mean with the Marcos draft?
In general, yeah.
In general.
Yeah.
Well, in general, basically, we have the control plane is just plain. This is the only node that is centralized in the control plane, and then we have the data plane managed by the anchors, the MARS, the access router. So all the control plane is controlled here. This is the guy keeping the cache, the prefixes where they are anchored, and this is the guy sending the PBUs and PBAs to these guys. So basically, this data plane, control plane. So
it's online. Okay, very good. Thanks.
So one piece of additional things that we need is to ensure that this guy is actually. Oh, sorry, you have another question. So, go ahead.
Please.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm trying to correlate between this work and the on-demand stuff. And what I'm seeing here is basically that you are supporting a session-lasting connection, meaning a connection where the IP address needs to last throughout the session. And as you are also pointing out, new sessions might use a different prefix because it might be more optimal, right? So the old, the open session needs to continue to use a non-optimal route using the first prefix, and new sessions can use the new prefix. And as the mobile node continues to be mobile, you might have more and more prefixes. What I wanted to point out is that if you use the different types of services that a mobile node might want to request, there is also a mode where a mobile node wants a session lasting, or what we call graceful replacement, meaning, yes, don't break my IP address, give me some time, and I will move to the new prefix. So this is also supported here. And I think we can do some work together on that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
Very good. Let's
Um,
have mailing list discussions.
Yes. Okay.
Quick, only very quick, because, yeah.
Anthony, a question, just would it have to try to relate the new terms that you have, like the MMA, relate to the terms that are defined in the DMM, such as the data planning and control planning and those terms? Either use those terms or add that explanation how they're related?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the terminology is really, I mean, we can change it.
Thank you.
That's no problem with that.
I'm Charlie Perkins. I remember a draft called Fast Mobile IP FMIP, and I'm sure you read and understand that completely. And seemed like there's some overlap between that and here. In FMIP, the access routers have perhaps a bit more control over establishing the tunnel and carrying context back and forth. But on the other hand, the way it interacts with sort of augmentation to neighbor advertisement and solicitation message seems like it would work pretty darn fast. So I was just wondering if you would be interested in trying to identify the differences between the FMIP approach and this. I mean, I guess the most obvious thing is that the CMD seems to be in charge of all the mobility here, where in the FMIP case, there's a lot more local control over that.
Yeah. But definitely is a good point, and yeah, I can work on that. So just to, I mean, I will skip this the delete part. I mean, this is just to mention that there is another stuff on the document for how to ensure that the mobile node gets always the same logical access router point of view when it's moving. So basically, it's like every time it connects and get a locally anchored prefix, it will interact with a kind of local access router interface that will follow the mobile node that it moves. And we have stuff on the draft, but I think that's not the main point for today. There are how this is explained here, and this allows some nice features, like for example, ensuring that the traffic for a local network can be managed by the router that is providing access to that network while the mobile node moves. But that's, again, not really the point for today. Very fast. I already mentioned in the past, we have running code. We demonstrated this in 2 IETF meetings, and there is open source implementation if you want to try the implementation of this. And then the last one that for me is the most important one is we are in the DMM working group. We have been working on DMM stuff. We have very good stuff on general architecture, on deployment models, considerations. The point is, do we want, or that's the question I would like the chairs allow me to ask, is to the working group is, do we want to work on standardizing a PMIP v6 based solution? And if the question is yes, I don't know how many people have read this draft or the previous draft and consider that it may be good starting point for this. So I don't know if you want to ask the questions.
I think we can ask that, but my suggestion is, I think maybe the question is maybe how many people have read that document?
Yeah, that's one of the questions.
Yeah, so how many people have read this document?
Or previous versions of.
Okay, yeah, okay, 4, 5, 6, 7, okay, so I think that's good. But can we, just start this discussion, the mailing list, and ask for adoption? Or if you want, we can ask for adoption here. But
as you prefer. I mean, I think my personal opinion, of course, is biased. I think that this, it's interesting to work on extending a existing solution for DMM. So that's why I started this.
I think my suggestion is today you got some good feedback, right? I think from Charlie and Danny and others, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why not do, because this has been, languishing there for a long time. Why not just do a fresh start and update it, right? And then ask for adoption in 101, idea 101.
Okay.
Let's show some mailing with discussion.
Okay.
And if there is, then let's adopt it.
Okay, sure. Thanks.
How about
Fair enough. Yeah, that's fine. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Carlos. And I think the next presentation is. We don't have mobility capability negotiation. I don't see Jong Hyuk. Okay, we'll skip that. And Beshat, I think, Beshat, yeah. What is new? Yeah.
You have slides?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to present TMM for Wi-Fi work. TMM for Wi-Fi.
Okay.
Next slide. Yeah. So this is an kind of use case to investigate how we can deploy TMM technologies in order to solve Wi-Fi mobility problem. So it was quite a big project. The part of it, should say, a big part of it was done in university, and then afterwards we followed up to finish it and then write this draft. And the university part was written on the university side. We have several papers, even a book chapter was published as part of this project. So so don't take it so lightly. So basically, yeah, the scope is to basically investigate it, layer 2 and layer 3 mobility. People say, well, what are you doing about layer 2? Because in the previous network, previous slide, please. Yeah, there's this mobile backhaul part. We wanted to handle the mobility there also. And then the SDN. Okay, so another part of it, this project is a big scope. Another part of it was the SDN control. So we wanted to do the layer 2 SDN control and layer 3 SDN control. Layer 2 SDN control part, we did this layer 2 mobility there and in the SDN controller. And then layer 3 is the routing control. So route establishment, route management, and then using more modern technologies like Yang and so on. Next, layer 2, yeah, layer 2 mobility. Basically, our contribution there is the mobility table, keeping for each mobile layer 2 and layer 3 information together. So any one of them change, so you have the mobility event. So this way, the downstream or upstream paths can be selected by the SDN controller. That was the idea. Layer 3 case, well, it has a lot of details. Here, we use the DMM technologies, basically PMIP, FMIP, and so on. So hand over PMIP, FMIP signaling, and then route establishment after handover using host routing. So basically, MN is given a fixed prefix, and then it keeps this prefix as it moves. So that's why it's kind of like host routing. And so basically, for the a new ADPN node from the deployment draft, then add a host route for the MN and propagate upstream, and that the previous one delete the route. Next slide. So we did a lot of experimental work, as I mentioned, for layer 2 mobility control. OpenFlow protocol was used, and Open Daylight package, Java based. And then the PhD student who did the work we set up a small switch network and programmed this mobility table and all that. Layer 3 case, unfortunately, the project was finished, so we had to do it ourselves. So then we used this RFC 8022 Yang module, then modified a little bit IPv6, IETF IPv6 unicast routing module, and then the host routing RPC modules to add delete routes. The details are given in the draft. Then we validated the Yang module and the RPC. So conclusions, applied DMM deployment models to Wi-Fi access, established relationship of Wi-Fi entities to DMM entities as much as possible. This is still ongoing because we had some model in mind, and then we have this DMM model. So how to establish the relationship? So is part of this work is FPC route, for example, Marco was talking about establishing the relationship of our RPC work, and then the FPC seems to be the only young RPC type of work, netconf methodology work in DMM. So what is there any relationship? One thing here we noticed that there's no route management there. But if there is any other relationship, we have to know. So especially on this aspect, we want comments from the working group. Then we establish a better relationship with the DMM and integrate to the DMM work what we did. That's what we'd like to do with your help. Okay, comments are welcome. I think that's all.
Very good. I think looks like you're doing some experimental work and all of that. I think continue, Bashit. I think at some point when you're ready,
okay,
we'll ask for what you feedback. Thank you. So last presentation, or maybe I think the earlier presentation, Danny, on your DHCP. But I think there's one more left. I think maybe I don't know Jong Hayak is here or not. Anybody from Jong Hayak's team, but that's probably okay. We'll take that out. So then this is the last presentation. Yeah. So DHCP extensions on the back. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so this is in addition to the service continuity work that we have been done. So this work actually spans 3 drafts. One is the socket extensions, which I presented before. Another is some work that we are planning to do regarding a router advertisement, which he described last meeting, and we will have more on that in the future. And that is to inform the network regarding the type of services the UE desires. Another way of informing the network is via DHCP. And this draft was presented here a couple of times. In the last face-to-face, I mean the one before, I was asked to present that to DHC and get their feedback. So I did that in the last face-to-face. In general, the feedback was positive. I got some comments and I updated the draft based on these comments. Mostly were editorial, but there were some comments regarding some option format, which I updated. Yeah.
So one, so a couple of questions. I unfortunately I didn't review the document in the past, but today, I just browsed it. So one question is like, when you specify a request saying that, I want this particular type of address, right? Address, I forgot the different types of addresses that you have, but session continuity, for example, let's take that, right? So do you think the DHCP server should be exposed to this level of aspects? Because there's so much about session management, right? When you say DHCP server, give me an address where I can use session continuity, what does it mean from the server point of view?
Okay. So basically, the UE requires a certain type of service, not just an IP prefix. I don't expect the DHCP server to be able to allocate a certain type of service, but I expect the DHCP server to communicate with some control entity in the network and receive back. Actually, what the DHCP server should receive back is a prefix and an acknowledgement regarding whether this service type was provided or not. And as a consequence of that acknowledgement, the server can reply to the UE with a prefix and with status regarding whether the desired service was provided or not. But I don't expect the DHCP server to be able to perform that.
Yeah, see, that is a big assumption. The issue is like, I think what is that interface, right? How does should the DHCP server talk to like LMA or the P gateway or
Exactly, yeah.
I think
But
that is a big interface. I think that's the
Uh,
concern I have, right? That is one point, right? Second point is like, if you look at, I think even Suresh knows, we did some work in the past to, have this kind of request in generalized form, like, ask a client can potentially ask, I want this particular type of address, right? Like the address type is a very generic. We tried to model it along the class based or whatever different types. There was a lot of discussions and all of that. That work never went forward. That, we tried so, a 10 year, right? Few years we tried and that didn't go anywhere, right? I think you may want to look at that actually, I really want to help, take up this work.
Yeah.
But those are the couple of concerns I have as a reviewer and also as a chair. So.
Okay, so yeah, I understand that, and to be frank, this work relates to some activity that is done in 3GPP, and also to be frank, they are not interested in the DHCP support. They are interested in the support through router advertisement, and you can understand why. The problem is that in the past, we got some indication from Suresh that modifying RA to support the ability, actually we need two things. One is complicated and the other is probably even more complicated. We need a mean for the UE to indicate to the network what type of service it requires, and we need a mean from the network to be able to reply to the UE. DHCP provides both. And I agree with what you said about the interface between the server and the P gateway or some other entity, and we can think about it. We didn't think about it so far. Regarding the alternative, modifying the mobility option in RA, we were told will be very complicated, but we will probably try to do that with the help of some others. But right now, I'm not that optimistic to be successful. I hope we will be.
It can be done. Maybe I don't know, Suresh has
Just to complete that, but that only provides a way for the network to indicate to the UE what type of service it provided. It doesn't provide a solution for the UE to request the service. And by the way, 3GPP right now is implementing that via NAS. So they're not using IETF protocols. And this sounds like a kludge to me, because the UE will request service via one protocol and receive the reply via a different protocol. It's kludgy. But in order to solve that, we will also need to modify router solicitation. And I heard this is practically impossible. So that's why I was trying to push DHCP as an alternative solution.
Okay, Suresh Krishnan. So AD hat now. So I have two hats. I'm going to answer with both hats. So the AD hat on. I need to explain one thing, right? RA is not a query response protocol. Okay, it's not a query response protocol. Okay,
right.
So even if you modify an RS is optional. So RS does not need to be sent. So you still need to figure out how a UE gets a prefix. So if you don't have an RS as a signaling mechanism, how do you give them the right prefix? So that needs to work anyway. So if any protocol that depends on an RS being sent, is going to fail. Okay, because first thing, RS don't have to be sent. Based on link layer, you can decide not to send RS. Second thing, RSs can be lost. They're sent to a multicast all routers address. Okay, they can be lost, like on Wi-Fi, on an IC link, you could probably lose RSS. Okay, so if you depend on RSS to work, the thing is finished. Okay, second thing, as Sri said before, so this is not with the AD hat on. We have tried this many times. It's not like one draft that went over 10 years and died. So this is multiple drafts with multiple stuff. So there's something that I did with the Nokia people, like the Raj and Domagoy and everything, where we specifically had only very, very specific things, which was home address, kind of thing, which gives you mobility support, and care of address where you don't care. Okay, that's all it had. And then there's like the stuff like, Sri did, like, and we worked together in MIF as well, which was like more generic on labeling prefixes with characteristics. Okay, if it's just not like home or whatever, you could like put whatever label on them as long as the mobile or the node asking for it understands what that thing it wants it, and then we can get it, then things will work. And this didn't work either, right? So I think you are fighting an uphill battle to make this work with an array. So when you say like, I discouraged you, I didn't discourage you. Like, you're free to go follow that.
No,
I just explained the history to you that
I
this is
didn't
not
mean-
likely to
yeah.
succeed. Like, I didn't tell you to not do
Yeah.
it. Like,
I didn't take that as a discouragement. I took it as a good input and,
Right.
and to be aware of the obstacles.
right. Okay. So now that's done. So like, as long as so just to answer Sri's point is that the DHCP server does not understand what it's handing out. Same way the DHCP server does not understand what NTP does when it hands out NTP server information. It does not understand what some node that gives you session continuity does. But there's like, I assume there's some kind of interface that populates the DHCP server with a set of prefixes that give you mobility properties and a set of things which don't. So, and we're not doing that interface here. Okay, so that's like you said, it's like certainly something that's missing, but I don't see that being done here because it's not relevant in DMM. Okay, so that's a gap, and you need to figure that out how you're going to make that work.
If-
That's
if we
so
decide to do
IETF
that-
does not do architecture, as somebody said. Like, we do protocols. So like maybe that's 3GPP. Like, maybe it's like some interface between the HSS and P gateway that you have to do, or you can kludge it onto something. I don't know, right? Like, but that's something that needs to get done because the DHCP server needs to get the set of prefixes
Right.
like to hand out, because without that, it's just like all the DHCP server is going to do is it's going to get an option, right? It's going to look in a lease file or some database that it's going to hand out, and then hand out the thing you asked for. That's it. It does not understand the semantics of what it's getting used for. So I don't see that changing in DHC. Like, nobody's going to change DHCP to make this understanding, and I don't see that work relevant in DMM here because it's not about doing this stuff.
Yeah, another thing is, Suresh, I don't know, the class-based stuff that's happening in the interior, now that they're, what is that?
Bruno, draft Bruno.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the MIF stuff.
Cisco draft, yeah.
No, yeah. Whatever, yeah.
Okay,
So,
cool.
right, I don't know, what are, if that can address some of this, I think that's also another direction.
Maybe take a look at it, but I think it's got a very, very different way of solving things, right? Because all you get is like a pointer, like where you can go query for the things. So it's like more lightweight in that way, because RA just tells you where to ask for more info. The RA itself does not contain the info. So that's a different mechanism to do it. So if you want to pursue that, that's okay too.
But by the way, well, no. So basically the question is, SSC modes is something that is getting into release 15. We were asked to support that, and it's very, very difficult. I mean, it's not a very complex feature, and still we are struggling how to support that. And I don't see any alternative other than either RA or DHCP or both. And it looks like we are hitting brick walls in both alternatives.
Yeah.
So what will be, I mean, some
So
work
what is
being-
the brick wall you're hitting with DHC?
because if you're saying
No,
there's
that's something. So what Sri said is there's like a gap that needs to be filled somewhere else. He
Yeah.
didn't say the DHC won't work, right? That's how I understood
so
it.
this is I understood you. You're saying no.
So I think I talked about what we did in the past, right?
Mhm.
That is one aspect. I am also, stating that there is an interface missing, right? So when you go to the DHCP server and say, give me an address which is session continuous, right? I
Session
think you
asking,
need to
yeah.
have some explanation of how the whole thing works. I think from system point of view, right?
And this is also stuff that you're saying it's not in the charter of DHC either, right? It's
No,
basically part of a whole solution, which IETF doesn't necessarily.
Correct.
So
there is some
yeah.
work to be done in 3GPP that you need to do, like on how this thing gets populated. I think that's how I see it, right? Like, so this work is not going to be entirely done in IETF. So there's going to be
Okay.
IETF protocols which you need to put into something. The same way, right? If I need to get an array from a 3GPP network, okay, the P gateway needs to know the prefix. So
Right.
this whole IPCAN session establishment, like I don't know what it is now, right? Like, but that like pushes the prefix down
Right,
somehow.
right,
That's not
right.
specified in IETF.
Right.
So
right.
like when you put together a system, there's like more things that you need to do than just IETF protocols. So that's what my point is. Okay. So there's no brick wall there, but there's more work you need to do in other places too to make that work.
I accept
think
that.
I think if you can do some more work on 3GPP and say that, this is how the rest of the interface work, and now we only need this specific extension, we can even,
So I don't think we will be able to advocate for more work in 3GPP regarding DHCP because they are relying on RA. And I believe they will only consider, I mean, using DHCP is a big change for them. And I don't see them considering that. But if they will consider that, is only if our RA is blocked. So
then you have a problem.
Right.
Even you have a
Okay.
problem.
So again, Suresh Krishnan. So going back to like that, right? So like there's no DHCP-v6 support in mobiles. Okay.
Right.
Which is clear. Okay.
Right.
So back when we started off, there's no DHCP PD support in 3GPP either. We just had to work like very hard to get it included. We had to do work in the IETF, which ended up being like 6603, right? Which was the whole, because the IPCAN session could only have one prefix. So we had to go and do work in IETF and 3GPP to get that done. So it's not easy, but it needs to get done. So if that's what it's required to make it work, that's what you need to do. Because like you need to go write in some spec in 3GPP,
I
right?
accept that.
No, wait. Like you need to write in some 3GPP spec that the mobiles need to support DHCP-v6, and it's up to you to pass it, right? It's IETF cannot like go and tell 3GPP that DHCP-v6 is required. We can probably put out a recommendation RFC. We've done them before. So there's like I think 7066 that we worked on a couple of years ago, which talks about like what are the things that 3GPP host needs to do for v6. So like if you can like come up with another RFC, go to v6 ops or somewhere and say like, okay, this is like a new set of things to do, and 3GPP takes it, awesome, right? But that work needs to get done. It's not going to be done from DHC. DHC cannot go to 3GPP and say like do DHCP-v6 on the host.
I understand, but there's
So
there's a chicken and an egg problem.
Yes,
Yeah. So
can we take it offline?
Yeah.
I think
Okay, I'll post some questions on the list, but
let's find a way.
Please
forward.
reply there.
No. Let's find a way forward. Like I think we told you even before we go to the mailing list, right? Let's try to sync up. Before the end of the week. Right?
Okay.
Let's try to find. I want to help you out, honestly, right? But there are obstacles. Let's understand it.
Okay.
See how to work.
Yeah.
Okay.
So okay, thanks.
Yeah. It's okay. Yeah, this is the last presentation, Jong Hack. Yeah, the title is Mobility Capability Negotiation. I think you have 7 to 8 minutes, if you can wrap it up, that will be good.
Actually, we have developed a lot of mobility support protocol like mobile IP, proxy mobile IP, and we have a lot of extension of them. And we are now developing DMM protocol as well. So, but we don't have the protocol selection, which means that when the mobile load one network side has various several protocol can be supported, but we don't have any negotiation or selection protocol for mobility. So this is the motivation of this draft. Actually, this draft was first presented at Chicago meeting, and we got some feedback on that. The first feedback is that we need to make more clear possible protocol categorize. And second feedback we received is that we need to make more clear protocol selection analysis. So we improved our draft to address all of the feedback. And here's the category. Actually, we categorized to network-based and host-based protocol. And at the network-based protocol side, we have GTP and DMM proxy mobile IP, which is the DMM and DMM protocol, and fast handover for proxy mobile IP v6. And the host side, we have mobile IP and mobile IP extensions like fast handover and hierarchical and demo as well. And here's a possible case. Each depending on the mobility support protocol provided from the host side or network side. We can select. We develop the possible case we can use. And also, we have some selection principle made. The protocol selection will not be the randomized selection. It will have some priority. The first priority, we just follow network ability. And the second priority is follow host preference. And third and fourth, we have the priority. And in default, network-based mobility support protocol will be used if it is supported. And at the left, we illustrated all possible cases like this. So I don't repeat the possible case here. And because last time we already presented and we developed and we improved this protocol, so I'm just asking you, is it possible to be considered as a working group draft? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? I think we can ask for the adoption call, but I haven't seen any was there any discussion on the mailing list on this topic lately?
We received some discussion and we closed the
Okay.
text.
So I can ask for adoption call, but my suggestion is, can we have few more discussions and then go for adoption call 101, IETF 101?
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
With that, folks, thank you so much for your participation. And I think the meeting minutes, Danny, you're going to send it out, right? And yeah. Yeah, MNID. I think Charlie, I think you're back, right? Suresh, you had some comments on the MNID draft? Just one final comment on the MNID draft?
Yeah, so I saw like Charlie's new draft. So there's like, I think still one item left in there, which is the saying that this is only in signaling messages, but not in data plane messages. I think we just need to add it. So that's not in Sri's text. So there's like two items, like Sri had to send you some and you had to add it.
So the intent was there with what's Sri suggested, but I could put in exactly your words.
Exactly. So if you do that, like I'll take it back to Alyssa and like try to put it on telechat soon.
Okay.
Like when, because the first chat after the IETF is like clogged because everybody's trying to throw documents in, but one after I can probably throw something in.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Very good. Thank
So
you.
you had the
Suresh.
shower, Charlie?
Folks, with that, we end this meeting. Thank you so much and see you guys all in IETF 101.
Hey. Thank you for interesting.
Thank you. No, sure. No. Yeah. Just copy. You want this sheet or some names?
I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah. So we also resolve what is that there from the yeah.
You already have both ones?
Yeah, we can go. Yeah.
Because from also, we have much to talk about.
All right, that's it. I'll see you later. So,